Okay, thank you. Um, I'm hearing some background noise, so I just want to make sure that we are all muted, please. Otherwise, I may have to mute you. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So the focus of this session is really around money mindset, and I think you've seen in some of the communication I've shared that this idea of money mindset for me is really foundational around how we deal with money, how we see our money, how we manage money, and how it influences our lives. So for me, this is the first session because it's so critically important. And it'll look at where do your money habits come from. It looks at challenging your mindset about money, how your money mindset leads to a life of bad financial decisions. I think we've all been there. How to shift your money mindset. And then also at the end, I will recommend some actions for you to take to help you move forward on this. So as I said initially, this session is part of a series, a program that we will be running over the next few months to really help you take control of your money. So the primary focus of this is really to say you are in charge of your money and therefore you need to take control of it. But it's also about helping you to think about how to manage your money, excuse me, and but also on a very practical level doing that. So this session may not be as practical as the next few sessions, but the next few sessions will start using practical and real tools to help you start managing and looking at your money. And the idea with this is really that we want you to get to financial independence. So you are able to start and continue saving. You have money for emergencies and particular life events. You also understand what investment options you have, and you can secure your future, which I think is often a challenge for many of us. So my name is, for those who don't know me, my name is Shireen Motara. I'm a certified coach. I'm also a social entrepreneur that runs my own consultancy called Tara Transform. And in my coaching practice, I coach women, and that covers a range of areas from professional growth to financial growth, and also to personal development and leadership as well. I spent over 20 years working in the social justice arena, and I continue to do so. And I'm an advocate for women's rights. So part of the reason why I do the kind of coaching work I do is to provide individual support to women in terms of their own vision and goals for themselves. I'm also a single mother, so I know a lot about financial stress and financial worries. And I do call myself a recovering financial disaster. And as we talk, I will share more about that. And I can also, from my own story, tell you that you can get out of that financial hole you've dug for yourself and move forward in a way where you feel much happier about your money situation. So I so like this quote because I think it's actually so relevant to us. It says we tend to think of ourselves as someone else when we are older, so we struggle to compromise our current enjoyment. And I think this is a lot about money mindset as well. It's okay, I have it now, I'll spend it now, the rest will worry about later. But actually, it should be the other way around. And so I think this quote is really a timely reminder that we need to be, thinking long term when it comes to our money. And then, just as an introduction, as I was doing research for this, and I think we all know already, as South Africans, we are notoriously bad at saving. Only 5% of South Africans save. And if you compare that to other countries like India and China, for example, Indians, 30% of them save from their monthly income every month. And in China, that's about 40%. And this is what I found a bit staggering. If you think about how much money you would need when you retire or um, when you stop working, you're going to need at least 2.4 million for every 10,000 of expenses you may have per month. So it's quite a mission to have to accumulate that money. If you think you want to live comfortably and you don't want to be reliant on SASSA when you retire, then the time is now to take action. So I invited a guest this evening because I know Geraldine Dunn for many years. We were at university together, but I've also seen her journey as a parent, as a lawyer, but also somebody who is very sober, thinking about her money and how she makes her money work for her. And I thought it would be a good idea to bring Geraldine in to just share some insights about her own journey with money before we look at some other information. So I'm sure Geraldine is not going to be too charmed with what I say here, but I really believe that Geraldine is a money savvy diva of note. I've seen how she engages with money, how she thinks about it, how she practically does something about her financial situation, her financial independence, and so on. And I feel it's quite exemplary. Amongst other things, Geraldine owns a number of properties, which she will also explain may have its pros and cons, but she can also explain why she thinks that's important. She has a range of investments. I know that through her, I've met different financial advisors to talk through investment options and so on. I see Geraldine also as an entrepreneur advocate. She basically runs her own business, works in the labor law field, and is actually quite in demand for her services. But I think for me, the biggest thing about Geraldine that I love is that she, for me, shows you she knows her worth. And she clearly goes after what she believes in, and in terms of that, she is able to take the action required to make sure that she lives the life of her dreams, and is not necessarily stuck in a rut because everything else is overwhelming. So what I do like about Geraldine is she's really a go-getter, and I think she knows who she is, what she wants in the world, and that in fact is so important in enabling her to be able to do what she does. So without much further ado, Geraldine, I'd like to say welcome and thanks so much for making the time to be with us. As a way of starting off, please tell us a little bit about your history with money. How did you grow up with money, and how did that influence you?
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I hope that the sound is good and you can all hear me. Thanks for inviting me, Shireen, and for the participants who are here, I hope that I'll be able to share something with you that you can learn from in some way. So I'm the youngest of 6 children. I grew up in Kimberley, happened to have a twin brother, um, and my dad died when I was very young, and my mother then had to raise us. So I was basically raised by a single parent, so to speak. Um, so from a very young age, money was an issue, and it remained an issue for the years of my life growing up in my mother's house. Um, Her disciplines and how we went about in relation to dealing with money has a lot to do with how my life has turned out right now and the way I currently live my life in as far as money matters are concerned. Can I
So
share
tell
some
us,
more on
yes,
that?
tell us a little bit more about that. What kind of discipline did she have? What did she do that for you, made a difference?
Okay, so my mother happened to be a teacher, and I think that also came with a notion of she needed to teach us or workshop us on money matters, because she knew that this would be a challenge later on in our lives, and we needed to ensure that there was no repetition in the cycle that we were living. So one of the things we were learned and accustomed to was the fact that we had to live by our own rhythm, because there were 6 of us plus my mother, and often extra family members who had to come and help with raising us. We had to live by our own standards, and that meant we needed to eat whatever was on the table. So that has taught me that it's never about the food you eat that should be, a priority in your life. You should set other financial goals, which speaks to prioritizing what's important for you. Another level at which I learned about money and my mother's ways in my childhood was the fact that it didn't matter whether we were ridiculed for the way we chose to live at that point. So um, typically in the area where we lived, when it was end of the month, you could have seen which homes the parents had now brought home money or salary. There was celebration, there was excessive spending on short-term things in those households. My mother, on the other hand, would teach us that it's not about payday celebrations. Stick it out. We've got to make sure that we stretch whatever we've got for the next 30 days of the month, even if it means we need to eat pap, even if it means we would share 3 apples divided by 3 so that the 6 of us would have an apple and so on. And it came with a lot of ridicule because kids are kids. They would tease you about the food you eat and the food they eat, the clothes you wear, and the fact that you got hand-me-downs, or you got donations from other people. And those are some of the lessons I've learned. One other thing that was very significant for me was that she would give me a list of items that I needed to go and buy be it a supermarket. So it meant taking the taxi, going to that particular shop with a list of grocery items, and being given a 20 Rand to buy whatever. And when I would get to the shop, either the money wasn't enough or the list was too long. And I then had to use my judgment to decide what would I take, what was most important for us, what did we need that could last us for the week, to get us through in terms of the money that she'd given me. And when I would come home, I would have to explain that, and I'm grateful that my reasoning at the time was being developed. And every time I did that, I exercised my financial constraint and my ability to weigh up between what was important and what was not. So that really helped me a lot. It's still the way that I operate in my personal space. Another part of the lessons that we learned was the importance of giving. No matter what we had, how much we had, how little we had, we needed to give, or we needed to share. And that was part of almost a permanent practice that we had. So I remember even sharing physical space in our house. You can imagine if you have a house with 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys, the sleeping arrangements, plus there are visitors who at the time were missionaries passing through town, or just some person who needed a place to sleep. We would have to provide the accommodation. And as a child, it was annoying because you'd have to give up your bed and make all sorts of sacrifices for this adult visitor to come and stay over and so on. And so sharing was a big part of my growing up. And I think it's important that we, for me right now in my adult life, to still hold that. And then, of course, the fact that it wasn't important whether we had a fancy this or the other, which in the eyes of the society then, and I suppose even now in our modern age, status matters. It's important that you drive a particular car or wear a particular brand. I was taught from a very young age that is not what counts. It's about the quality of your life and what you need and what you've planned and set out for yourself. So those are some of the things that I learned. I think a big part of the sharing was coming from a big household where as siblings, you needed to learn how to share and how to be part of a bigger picture and not just think of yourself. So yeah, Shireen, those are part of the things. My mother was also very set on prioritizing her expenses. In other words, the fact that our accommodation had to be paid. She had to make sure that we had some sort of um, provision for medical aid or in case there was illness in the house. She spent a lot of her money on building a better life for her for when she retires. At that stage, it didn't make a lot of sense because, why would
Geraldine, sorry. Yeah, okay.
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, yeah, no, I think I muted you there by mistake. I wanted to mute myself, but Farah
Oh,
just
okay.
walked into the room. So apologies. If you
Okay.
could just
All right.
say the last part again.
I'm trying to think what that was about. But yes, my mother prioritized all her expenditure. She made sure that she respected the fact that when she owed um, money to whichever place or person that she had paid that, even if it was a portion thereof. So I think it's taught me not to run away from a debt, but to face it, even if I need to go and explain to whoever the powers that be that I can only pay so much, and
Mhm.
these are my reasons, but not to sort of hide and put your head in the sand like an ostrich and hope that it's going to go away. So yes, my childhood was very significant in the way I see money as an adult today. Shireen?
Yeah, thanks, Geraldine. I think I was a bit of the ostrich type at some point in my life. I really, I had a fear of engaging those people that the creditors and often would run away from trying to connect with them. But as you say, I've also learned that speak to them, make arrangements. There are ways of dealing with things without letting it totally overwhelm you. So tell us a little bit about how you deal with money now. Aside from obviously you earn money, you have to pay certain things. How do you prioritize your investments, your properties? How do you do that with the income that you have? Because I can imagine, yes, you earn well, but I'm sure there are lots of us who earn well, but we're not using our money wisely. How did you make the decision about investing in property, and how did you prioritize the money that you have to do that?
Okay, so I need to say a few things to answer all of that in a context that people will appreciate and understand. So, about 20 years ago, I started my own business as a consultant. I'm very grateful to my mentor at the time. And so, when you run a consultancy, for those who are consultants, you never know what's going to happen. You never know whether there's 3 months of lockdown waiting for you or whether the work dries up. So, you've got to make sure that you have some level of consistency as far as your money matters goes. A very practical uh, tip that's helped me as a consultant is the fact that I allow my income to be in arrears. In other words, I only invoice you after a month, just so that I make sure that money follows me and I don't follow the money. Um, and so I've started my business on that basis, and it's helped me to have a consistent income flow, whether it was hailing or snowing or cats and dogs jumping up, around me. There would be that calm in the midst of all of that happening, or hardship or crisis for that matter. Um, I am a mother of 3 children, which comes with a lot of expectations and responsibility for running a family. So I needed to find a grip over money matters so that it doesn't grip me. And eventually you end up being very sick because that's what it can lead to. It can eventually affect your health. And that's the power of money. So one of my philosophies is that I view money as an inanimate object. It is something that cannot be stronger or more powerful than me in any way. So I've got to find a way to manage money as opposed to manage money managing me. So one of those ways that I think about is that if I set a goal, if I set a dream, I've got to stick to it, because that's the only way I'm going to show money that I'm far more powerful than what its power or its pull and tug is on one's life, or your mental commitment to certain things. So I really put money in its place, in various ways, because you've got to show that you've got to overcome it. Otherwise, money will you'll be pulled by your nose by your money and matters, and you've got to be in charge of it. Um, I think the fact that my mother managed to keep it going all these years for us, and I'm sure there were horrible times when she couldn't cope with the financial issues, but she made sure that we always had food. She made sure that we always could get to school, and so on. So that's the strength that I'm drawing from right now, is that I've got to make sure that I keep it. I must be able to keep money, on a consistent, as a constant in my life, and that it doesn't have sort of erratic stages where it's good and then it's bad and then it's good and bad, and I begin to resent myself. So from what I know in my family, I've realized that having a house and keeping your house and staying in your house is important. And so property is what then jumped out at me. A few years ago, I started working at a bank. And that's when I acquired my first property, because I realized it's part of my salary. Um, the portion of money on the reduced interest rates for staff was in fact part of my income, real money that I was missing out on. And then I decided to get into property. Now, the interesting thing about property that you must please be mindful of, whilst you own so many properties, and you need to show the bank that you can run that type of expense or expenditure, um, a lot of it is in fact using the bank's money to your benefit. So I've got tenants who are paying bonds on my behalf. And it creates an illusion that I have the money, but in fact I don't. It's just the fact that the tenants are paying. I've managed to find a way, sort of in the system of money, to make money work for me as opposed to the other way around. Mm-hmm. So property is a good strategy in that regard, although it does require a level of tenacity, a level of reputation, so that when you go to a bank and say, I want to buy a property, they'll look at your financial reputation and the way that you've managed your own affairs to be able to say, yes, we can give you that second loan, and allow you to increase your profile, your property
Geraldine,
profile.
tell us why did you decide to use property, and what do you see as the value of it in the long term for you?
Okay, so on the first and most important one is what I've just explained, is the fact that I don't pay for the investment. Mm-hmm. The investment pays itself. Right now we are going through a bit of a difficult time economically as a country because of the pandemic. I've got one potential tenant who's not going to pay or may give me a problem, but that will be the first time that I will actually put my money into that property and have to pay. And it hasn't even realized yet. So I might find a tenant, I'm just giving you very real scenarios about what being a property investor is about. But for the most of it, it's that the tenant pays for the property, and you reap the benefit thereof, so to speak. The other reason why I've gone into property is that it is such a fixed asset. And when you walk into any bank and you say, I own these properties, you're also able to use it as equity or a leverage for a new loan, which can propel you to the next level. I think when we think about buying assets in our current society, people will go for an expensive car. which depreciates, whereas a property would appreciate and bring you more returns, should you, keep the property until it's sort of matured, and able to benefit you from a financial perspective. So it builds on what you already have, Shireen, in terms of your financial strength. I've now sort of gained a bigger financial arm that in fact is not really from my income. It's just that I've used the bank's money for my benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think property is a great investment. And it's at least, it's not as risky. I've been very fortunate to have had very reliable tenants. And I think there's a lot of good people out there that one can do business with.
Okay, so if you were to give our participants, 3 tips around, how to start on a solid foundation around reaching financial independence, what would you suggest?
Okay, so what I hold very dear to my heart is the fact that I must be audacious about money. When we break that down, I'd say you must accept that money cannot be above you. It cannot be, you cannot see it as more powerful than what you are. Okay, you've got to step into your power, so to speak, and understand that you can do with money whatever you like. You can use it for good, or you can squander it. Mm-hmm. So money will do with it what you want it to do. So the philosophy is that you need to become the master and not the slave of your money. That's the first thing. The second thing is have an accountability partner. So I always associate with someone who's able to teach me something, and that's how I'm been friends with you all these years. Associate with someone who can teach you something about money matters. So you've got to be intentional about, I want to learn more. I want to be in a better position financially. So I'm going to associate with someone who knows more and who's able to teach me and even hold me accountable if the relationship goes that well. And then thirdly, I want to say that you must commit to something. Mm-hmm. So I not so long ago, I met a new friend, and she said to me she's taking an entire family overseas. And I thought, oh wow, that's a bit much. I've got 3 children and my husband and all of that. But I set a goal and I was able to achieve it. I managed to pay off whatever needed to be paid for the tickets and so on. And so now I know that that's a dream that I can accomplish. There's nothing that is too big a dream that I can't manipulate and abuse my money to go into. Just today, I saw one of the offices I went to, a client's office. One of the ladies at a computer desk had a Valpay bottle of water with 50 cents, I think it's a rand or 50 cents coins in it that she was filling up. And it just still is such a clear picture in my mind that even that, it might seem so significant and small, but that could have, a big result at the end of a year or month, few of those bottles, if you put all of that together. Oh, the last thing I want to say is that, Shireen, every single minute of our lives is about money. And we go to work for so many days of the year because we're making money. We're only there because we're making money. We're making money on an hourly rate. Every minute there's money. So if money is such an intense thing in our day to day, minute by minute, surely that commodity we can manipulate and put away and say, I'm going to only survive on so much, or I'm going to cut off even if it's 500 rand every month, so that in the instance of time, if you look back, so much time has passed, I would have saved so much. Mm-hmm. It's not as if we only hear about money once every quarter. Mm-hmm. Every day of our lives is money. So we can say, well, I'm going to make it work for me. I'm going to channel. I'll cut off, pinch here, pinch there. I can get myself to the next level. And I want to say it's doable. I'm even surprised that I'm on the show because I'm wondering, like, how did I get here? Because, it's doable. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Geraldine. I think that was quite enlightening. I hope everyone has has got something from that. I think what I got from it is really about the idea of having a goal. And it's not necessarily a financial goal, but it's it could be a life goal. As you say, taking your family away or retiring comfortably, whatever that may be. So I take that away, and this idea that money is not the controller. Money doesn't control you. You allow it to control you, and therefore you have the ability to control it. And it's actually something that I will raise now in the discussion further. So thanks very much, Geraldine. I think that's been really insightful. And if anyone has a burning question for Geraldine, let me know. And then I have a couple of questions for everyone to think about, which is, linked to what Geraldine has spoken about. And it's really about what is your earliest money memory. When you think about money and your childhood, what is that thing that you remember first about how money was dealt with in your home or wherever you lived? Like for me, I remember the key thing I remember was my father always trying some kind of business or other to make money. And then also when my parents divorced, I remember my mother using a lot of credit to make us live comfortably, and that kind of influenced me and also got me into what I would call a bad credit habit, which I've thankfully been able to shake off. But so I think that this idea of our earliest money memories, it really influences how we see and engage with money. So if you'd like to share, please do share on the chat. I will read it out if you want to share any thoughts you have about what your earliest money memory is. And then also, as I've said, how has this influenced your money habits? So in light of what you saw growing up and how people in your life were using or dealing with money, how has that influenced your money habits? And I'm sharing these questions with you, not that you need to answer them now, but really that as you start this journey of shifting and changing your money habits, your money mindset, these are the thoughts you need to start engaging with. Where does my bad money habits come from? And how has that influenced the way that I'm dealing with money at the moment? Because unless you get to grips with that, it's going to be very difficult for you to to move forward, to be able to overcome that. And then linked to what Geraldina said about financial goals or goals that you need to have, I think it's very important to think about what would you like your life to be like in the next 5 to 10, even 20 years, if you're much younger than I am. But really, what is that vision you have for your life ultimately? How is it that you want to live? What do you want to have? Like the thing I keep saying to my cousins, for example, is like, I don't want to get money from SASSA. And I'm quite serious about it, because if you really don't manage your money well, and I've seen that in my own family, particularly with women who had really good jobs, who did a lot, who achieved a lot, who I thought would retire well, and who are now in a sense stuck and are getting their pension from SASSA because, ideally, even though they worked for many years, they got the money, they then squandered that money on things like, okay, I have to renovate my house and I have to buy my child a car and things like that. And when it came to their real retirement, they had nothing. So it's really important for you to think about where is it that you want your life to be and how do you want to live, in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Okay, so now we're going to just, I'm going to talk through, and Geraldine has said a lot of this, so I'm really glad, we kind of synchronize on that, because as you will see, it's really the basic stuff, it's the stuff about, am I really being clear about what, about what I want, and about where this issue of money mindset comes from. So the first thing I think is I often see, or I think, and I used to think this too, is that in order for you to manage your money well, or to really, have the kind of mindset that drives you to manage your money well, you need to be an expert. But that's not true. It's really about, for me, it kind of speaks to a value system, and really being very clear about what it is you want for your life, and using that as the impetus to get you moving, and changing your money habits. So for me, anyone can really manage their money. I just think, as Geraldine has also said, it's making a conscious decision to say, I want to achieve this, or this is my goal, and I'm going to work hard to achieve that goal. And then money becomes the tool to help you achieve that. The big thing that I find, and it's, and I think it's also because of maybe about the way we grow up, or what we see when we are children and so on. But we really, many of us have a kind of scarcity mindset. So it's like, I have this little, I have to manage this little, and use it, for whatever, and that's it. But it's really, I think, and I've been learning more about that in recent years, about this idea of, moving from a kind of scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, and knowing that the universe is there to provide for you, that, what you want, you can have, but it does mean that, you have to act in order to achieve that. So for me, I think a scarcity mindset keeps people stuck. It keeps you stuck in that thinking that, oh, I will never have this, I will never have more, or I will never be able to achieve this. And it keeps you stuck, and therefore you get into the cycle of, bad money management and bad money habits. And then I also think, this idea of short-termism is a problem. And, when I think about that, it's like, what do I want now? What do I need now? I need to do this now. I want this car now. I want that couch now, and things like that. And believe me, I come from that as well. So, it's not a judgment. It's really just saying that part of the things that create this money mindset problems for us is having the short-term, um, the short-term happiness type thing, when you buy something and, it gives you joy for a while, and next year you look at it and you think, but why the hell did I pay all the money for that? So it's really about, bad money decisions are made with a short-term view, the kind of I want it now thought process. And often what happens is that, that leads to shortcuts, which then leads to poor decision making around how to use your money, because you're kind of stuck in that I want it now mentality. And then I think the thing that is so significant here is, it is not about how much you earn, because I've seen a lot of people go through this thing about, now, if I earn more money, then I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to have a pension. I'll be able to have a medical aid. I'll be able to buy a house and things like that. But I think that is not the problem, because for me, you see people with lots of money who are still making bad money decisions, who still don't have their retirement plan for, who are still not safe. If you look at the stage that we are in now with COVID-19, for somebody who may have lost their job, and somebody who was earning a big salary and living the life, and now they've lost their job, but they have nothing to fall back on, because they had the short-termism thing going, but they were also, they thought, okay, they earn a lot of money, so it will keep them going. So I think for me, if you have to think about, the biggest thing about mindset is about, it's not about how much you earn. I mean, we see lots of women in particular, women who are in unskilled jobs, women who are domestic workers and so on, who have been able to raise children successfully with the little money that they've earned. So I really think it's about having to get away from that kind of, if I just earn more, I'll be able to do more. For me, is unless you have your mindset right and you're able to plan the way in which you spend your money, or what you're going to do with your money, you will continue to struggle. And then I think we all have excuses about money. No, I'm not ready now. I'm in a difficult time. I just need to get through this. Then I will worry about money and so on. And so for me, that's been a major challenge. And I think it's only in the last 5 years that I can honestly say that I am really doing a good job with my money. So I'm almost 50, and for over 2 decades of my life almost, I've been wasting my money, and I've always had excuses about why I have to do that. So I think that we need to get away from this idea of there's always a reason why you can't invest or why you can't save and so on. It's up to us to really change that. And then the critical thing that Geraldine said, and which I've also realized for myself, and also from all the reading and research that I've been doing around this issue, is that unless you have goals, unless you are really clear about where you want your life to go, what you want to achieve, you will struggle with money. The one of the things I've also read, for example, in the literature, is that if you for example, if you are working and you just work because you need to earn money, you don't really have a goal with your professional life, then you're going to go from one job to the other and chase money, but you will never feel fulfilled because you don't really have a goal for yourself around your career. What career do I want? How do I want to feel when I do this work? What kind of work really, makes me happy, gives me energy, and so on. And similarly with money, if you're not going to think about, the kind of life you want to live, where you want to be at certain points in your life, and work towards those, then you will continue to spend your money, for no good reason whatsoever, and then always think, oh, I don't have money. And later in your life, you'll sit with nothing, and then you'll have major regrets about it. So having goals is really important. And yeah, again, I think it's not about a money goal per se, but it's about goals for your life. And the example that I can give is that when I was working with a coach, 2015, after my whole life fell apart, one of the things we did was to start thinking about, what is it that I want to achieve for my life in the next few years, based on, where I've come from, how things have fallen apart for me, and how I want to move forward differently. And I still have those flip charts in my cupboard. And every time I look at them, I feel amazed at how much progress I've made in moving towards achieving those goals. So I think goals really help you in being focused and trying to, to move away from the things that you have been doing that have really had disastrous consequences for you financially. And then the other also that I see is this idea of, I want to be wealthy, I want to earn lots of money and so on. And it's the same thing as, earning a lot of money and then thinking, you're wealthy and so on. For me, and I see many also say that wealth is a byproduct of success. So it's not about being rich and having flashy cars and so on, but it's about being comfortable, but being able to take action to get you to that point. So what I've also seen is that many highly successful people achieved wealth as a byproduct because they wanted to achieve something else. They wanted to do something to change the world. They wanted to invent something new. They wanted to, make sure that the world is a different place or a better place. So, and wealth came as a result of that, rather than wealth being the key driver of what they wanted to achieve. So, in summary, just on that, I think that this idea of abundance again, is important. And for me, it's really recognizing that the universe is abundant, that what you want is out there for you. But unless you act to get it, you will never get it. And that no one is against you. The universe wants you to prosper. The all the odds are stacked in your favor. But if you look at the world from a perspective of, the glass half empty, or no, I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough to have this, and so on, then you will continue to live a life where you are struggling and you don't have enough, or you believe you don't have enough. So, belief becomes a critically important part of our mindset, of our value system, and then how we engage with the world and the things that we want in life. And as Geraldine has said, money is an abstraction. It's an abstract thing. It doesn't have a personality. It can't talk to you, and so on. And often we allow money to control our lives completely, to the point where, we go into depression, we become suicidal, we run away from creditors, like I've done in the past. We just are not able to engage with money from a point of, I am the decision maker, I have the power, and therefore I will decide what happens with my money. And also, obviously, money has no intelligence of its own. So you are the person with the intelligence that has to control the money, that has to make decisions about your money. And therefore, your money will respond to the instructions that you give it. And it's important to recognize that it may sound simplistic, but if you really think about it, you will see what a difference that makes. So finally, I want to just give some thoughts around moving forward and changing your money mindset. So what are the things that you can start doing to help you change your money mindset, which I think maybe is, and it's not an overnight process, but it's possible. So I think it's really worth engaging a little bit with this, just to say that there are ways of moving forward. But for me, again, I think what is important here is around recognizing that it's a step-by-step process. So this quote also by Anthea Gardner, she has a book called Make Your Money Work for You, which I also think is quite useful. She says, we need to think about savings and investment as a rite of passage to being a grown-up. I think for many of us, and if I remember myself, when I started my first job, and the first time I got a salary, I went to open a Foschini card, because for me, that was what money was about. It was, for the first time, I'm able to have my own store card, and I can buy my own clothes. And in fact, it shouldn't be that. It should be really, or if it is that, it should be that with saying that I also have to save money, and I have to start planning for my future as well. So this idea of financial independence is really that, it's not dependent on having a salary. So it's not just that, I earn a salary, I earn so much money every month, and therefore, I'm fine. Because what happens if you lose that salary, immediately, and you don't have savings, or you don't have other money, then you're stuck. So it's really being able to have sufficient wealth and reserves. And when I talk about wealth, it's really about being able to have access to other sources of income that you can look to, that will be able to sustain you even if you don't have a salary. And often in our retirement, those are things that we need to think about. So, what is going to sustain me once I've retired? And if you think about retirement, for example, you will know that now we live longer. So, the old days of our parents' retirement, and they live, 10 years or so, and then, they die and so on. That's not the reality for us. We live at least 30 or more years after retirement. And even if you have a retirement annuity or pension fund or whatever the case is, will that really sustain you that long? So you have to start having bigger goals about how you will be sustaining yourself, post-retirement. And even if you are the type of person that says, no, I want to retire early, then how have you made provision for that? And then I think the other thing that's important to say is it's never too late to start. If I look at my own example, yes, I still worry about, will I have enough to retire on? Will I be able to live comfortably? Plus, I have a young child who's only 14. But I think that every step that you take now is going to put you in a better position in the future. So it's never too late to start, because I think sometimes we throw our hands up in the air and be like, okay, it's too late now anyway. I'll just go with the flow and we'll see what happens. But take it from me, it's never too late to start. So you can still do something now. This comes back to the idea of goal. So what is really important to you? What do you want your life to be like in the future? And this is the anchor around which to create your vision and your goals. If you think about your life in the future, what do you see? For me, I see myself not having to work full time, for example. I want to see myself traveling maybe, 3-4 times a year. I want to be living comfortably without having to worry about paying a bond and things like that. So, it's also important about thinking about those things. And there's even a lot more detail that you can get into around those. And that also then helps you to think practically about how much money you may need in order to achieve those goals. And then, are you doing what you love now? So it's the thing I said earlier about jobs and career and what you're doing, even in business, for example. If you are just going through life surviving, coping, then, then it means your mindset is already, in a sense, messed up, because you really, there's nothing driving you, there's nothing motivating you, you're not feeling energized about what you're doing and what you want to do. So for me, my example is that I used to job hop. My friends used to feel like I job hop because every year or so I change a job, because I just felt like, when I'm in a job for by the end of the year, I'm bored. Like I feel like I can't do the same things over and over. And it's part of the reason why I made the decision to become a consultant, because then I get to do a variety of things that I really enjoy. And that meant that I must then focus my energy on making that work, rather than thinking every time there's no consulting gig coming in, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I need to get a job. So it's really about, being driven by what you love doing, and, how you want to continue doing that in some way in the future, and then working to achieve that. So I do think there's a lot to be said about having passion and purpose in terms of how you see your life in the future. And then change your attitude. I mean, again, it sounds so simplistic, but it's really about, stepping out of that mindset that says I'm a failure, I won't succeed, whatever I do, it won't work. I'm stuck here for life, kind of thing. Because unless you change your attitude and your mindset, no one else is going to do it for you, and you will continue to struggle. We've talked a lot already about abundance mindset, so I'm not going to say too much more about that. But really, it's also about focusing on what you do have. Being grateful for what you do have, being appreciative for what you have, and making the best decisions with what you have. Instead of thinking, no, when I earn so much money, then I can do that, or then I can do that. It is about, I think Geraldine said about gratitude and about giving as well. And I think that, part of what I've also learned over my life is that even when things were difficult for my mother and I, because she was such a giving person, she always helped others and so on, we never really struggled that much. There was always someone helping us as well. So I do think this idea of giving is a good idea. But then I also think that it's about thinking about the boundaries of that. How can I give within what I have? And how do I make it clear to those that I give or that I can give to about the limitations of what I can do and for how long I can do it and so on. I sometimes think, particularly us who come from Black families, there's often an expectation that if you're the one that has achieved, for example, you have university education, now you have a great job, and the perception is you're earning a lot of money, the expectation becomes that you can just give, give, give. But that's not, obviously that's not right, and it's not true either. So unless you actively communicate about the fact that, these are my limitations, I can give so much to you every month, or I can within a year give you so much, you can decide how you want that, but beyond that, I will not be able to assist. So unless you create the boundaries, and unless you clearly communicate about what you can and can't do, the expectation will always be that no, Shireen is there, she'll be able to do it. It's also been a hard lesson for me because I always feel guilty. Okay, maybe I would, at times I would even go and borrow money to give someone money who needs money. And I've realized that that's not the way to go. So I have also been really clear now about, yes, I can assist you, but I will need the money back by this time. Or no, unfortunately, at this point, I can't assist you because it's just not possible. So I do think that being that assertiveness, being able to make decisions about your money, communicating clearly to those who have expectations, is also a critical part of building your money mindset. We've talked about lead your money. So really you need to see money as the tool. Money is not your owner. It's not, it's not the one that's making decisions. You are the one that makes decisions, and you need to see money as that tool that will help you make good decisions that will benefit you now and in the future. And then, I mean, if I see people who have these big dreams and so on, I think those are the people that are motivated to get to what they want. Those of us who just go through life one day at a time, and, we're just coping with life, and, and so on. We really struggle with being able to make good decisions, long-term decisions, and planning for the future. So I think you should dream big, have that big dream. It's an amazing thing, and it should motivate you to then take the right decisions to achieve that big dream. But then be realistic also. So you can't say, okay, I want to go overseas. I want to go to New York, and then you say, I want to go next month. That's totally impractical, because if you have a lot of debt and you can't afford to do that, and then you're going to go into credit card debt for that, then really, how is that serving you? So really be practical and realistic about how you can achieve that big goal. And I will also give some further information about that at some point. And then, as I said, which links to the big dream idea, it's really about thinking big and acting small, so start doing the little things that can start changing your actions, your behavior, your mindset, to get you to that big goal. Because I also think sometimes we think that if we have, we want to change the way in which we manage money, then the first thing, then within a month, we want it to be different. It's not going to happen like that. So don't create these illusions for yourself, but be really realistic. Start taking small actions. Review your expenses, for example. Just going through, many of us ignore our bank statements. But if you just go through your bank statements, you will be able to actually see where you are wasting money. If you have a budget, you will be able to plan how you want to spend your money. And that also then helps you to stay within your means, because if you track your spending and so on, like I have a spending tracker where I put every expense in, and in the middle of the month, when I look at that graph and I see the expenses are going here and the income is going, the income is not increasing, then I have to make decisions about, okay, what do I need to do now? I need to stop spending on this, or am I spending too much money? So, really there are small steps that you can take to make an immediate change, but all those small steps will also help you to get to that bigger goal of financial independence. So yeah, I think shit happens, really, to be able to, if I have to say to you're never going to make a mistake again if you go on this right track and so on. No, that's not true. Things will happen. You'll have emergencies. You'll have to spend money. I still sometimes, like now that it's lockdown, we've really been able to fix that. I used to spend a lot of money on takeaways because my daughter doesn't eat lots of things, and I just didn't have the energy to cook. But then I decided, okay, maybe my friend who's a chef can give her cooking lessons. And when she starts seeing what the food is, what it looks like fresh before it's cooked and so on, and she starts cooking herself, then it could change things. So now she cooks and I cook, and we only have takeaways maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. And that's made a significant difference for us. So I think don't be too hard on yourself. Things will happen, but the idea is to try and stick to the plan and make sure that you're also taking action to address, possible problems that may happen for you as you go along. So yeah, I want to come back as we end. I just want to come back to this idea of starting with your goal. So really, what is it that you want to achieve? And not necessarily money goals, but for your life. In the short term, if you think about, where we are in COVID-19, things are a bit dicey. We're not sure what's going to happen. What do you see happening for you for the rest of the year? What do you want to see being different for you at the end of this year? In the next 2 years, what do you want to see? In the next 10 years, what do you want to see? And that will then help you to be able to start, bedding down the things that you see for yourself in the future. And those are the things that will help then shape your action that you can take in order to achieve those. And then linked to that is also about how much will you need in order to achieve that goal. So, it's also about thinking about the money for that, because unless you think about the money that you're going to need to achieve that, you're not going to be able to plan properly to save the money or invest to grow the money to be able to achieve that goal. So you have to write it down, but you also have to act on it and you have to track it. So you have to keep coming back to that goal. Where am I with my goal? What have I achieved? My flip chart there on my cupboard door, I go to it and I say, oh, okay, I'm here. The next step is this. And through my other actions, then I try and make sure that I continue to drive that plan for myself. So what I want you to think about as we end here, and as you think about your own money mindset, is to maybe just start with having a vision and some goals. What is it that you want to, and you can decide, is it 5 years, is it 10 years, whatever it is. And then once you have that big goal and the big vision, then make it into smaller attainable goals. So if you have a 5-year vision and a 5-year, you want to achieve one big goal by the end of 5 years. If you work backwards from that 5 years, by the end of 4 years, what must you have done? By the end of 3 years, what must you have done? And then similarly, on an annual basis, what must you achieve to be able to get to that goal that you have? And then further back, what on a quarterly basis is it that you want to achieve? And then on a monthly basis. And that then helps you to have, a regular plan of action to start acting in order to change your future, to change your life, to live the kind of life that you want to live, by the time you have achieved your goals. So a little bit of homework for you, and I will share the slides with you. But it's really that as you go away, take what we've discussed tonight and go and start doing something about it. So, how long do you have to reach your ultimate goal? What is that goal that you want, and how much time would you have to want to do that? And then what is really important to you, and what do you want your life to be like? I think many of us, and many of us who are working to make life better for others and so on, we really don't spend a lot of time thinking about our own dreams, our things that we want to achieve. So I think, invest some time thinking about that. And then from an occupational point of view, what do you want to do with your time? Do you really just want to be in a job where you go from 9 to 5 and then it's over, you don't care about it, it does nothing for you, you'll just continue because you get the money? Or do you really want to do something now that is already feeding your passion, feeding your purpose? When you think about your goals, what I've seen in some of the literature is to get quite specific. So for example, if you think about where you're going to live in the next 10 to 20 years, Do you see yourself living in South Africa or somewhere else? Do you see yourself living in a flat or on a farm, for example? All of that impacts what money you will need in order to live that life. So try and think quite specifically about what you want. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Do you want to travel? Do you still want to have a car? Do you still want to have medical aid? You know, all of those kinds of things, they cost money in the end. So if you start thinking clearly and specifically about those kinds of things, then you can also start thinking about how much money do I need, and therefore from a retirement planning point of view, from an investment point of view, from a savings point of view also, how do I start making provision for that? And then I think the thing about giving back, I think many of us would love to continue giving back in some way. So you need to think about that as well. So what do you want? How do you want to help others? How do you want to continue to help others? Whether it's family or NGOs or, you know, someone's childhood that you want to give education to, or whatever the case may be. If you want to do that, you have to plan for that as well. So it's not just, no, I'll do that, you know, when I get there, I'll see and I'll try and make a way for them, you know, to give money. So that also has to be planned for. So what I'm really saying here is just take some time to sit down and reflect upon, you know, what it is that you want, and be a bit more specific around what you want to achieve in how much time and approximately how much will that cost you. And that starts helping you to start setting some goals that you can work towards. Okay, so that was the last on today's session. I just wanted to also give you some additional information on the rest of the sessions. So what we're wanting to do with the rest of the sessions is to start looking at three areas, but starting with the area about debt free, because, you know, one of the things that we do know is that unless we pay our debt, and particularly all the unnecessary debt like the store cards and things like that, we won't be able, it becomes more difficult to save and invest your money. So we will start looking at being debt free and acting to reduce your debt. But that means being able to analyze your spending patterns, looking at budgeting, and looking at options to save on expenses as well. So maybe one or two of the next sessions will focus on that. And then we will look at saving. So how to start small with saving, because I think we often think that, you know, if I want to save, I need to now try and find 1,000 Rand a month to save, or whatever the case may be. But that, you know, you don't have to do that. Last year, I made the decision to start a tax-free investment account. I went to open it myself online. I put 500 in it every month. This year, when it matured, I had a lump sum of 20 something thousand, because it was an investment tax-free that gave me additional interest. And now I can use that to start my pot of emergency savings. So don't think that you have to start with a big load of money in order to start saving. There are ways in which you can start small, and you will see the difference that that makes. It also motivates you to then do more. So we will look at how to save starting small. We will start looking at emergency savings, because I know many of us don't have emergency savings. You do know you're supposed to have at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses in saving, so that should you lose your job, for example, in a scenario like COVID-19, where many people have lost jobs, you'll be able to have money to cover those expenses. So we want to help you to think about that, to also think about life events. So, you know, you want to plan for your retirement, or you want to plan for a big holiday in 2 years, or whatever the thing is. We will look at that. And then also the idea of group saving. So many people struggle to save on their own, but perhaps if you're in a group and so on, you know, it helps you keep you accountable, and you're able to save with your group, and then, you know, use some of that to start investing and so on. So there are those options as well. And then under investment, we'll start looking at what are the different options. So for example, I've mentioned tax-free savings, where you get a tax benefit for saving. And then there's also stock market, which you can invest in different ways, through shares, for example, but also exchange traded funds and other vehicles. Many of us, it sounds like Greek when we hear those things. So we really want to demystify some of that for you and help you think about how, in the long term, you can start looking at those as options for savings and investment. And then also the important thing about retirement planning, I worry that too many too many women are not looking at retirement planning early enough, and then get stuck and get into a retirement life where, it's struggle. Basically, you live from hand to mouth, and you've worked all your life, but you have nothing to show for it. So we'll also focus some attention on that. So this is just to give you a sense of the next sessions and what we will be looking at. Okay, so thanks very much. I think that's more or less the content I had in terms of sharing some insights with you around this issue of money mindset. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. You can raise your hand. Let me just try and get that. You can use the raise your hand feature, or you can just unmute yourself and speak to us. Let me just check there. I see there's some chat points. Yeah, I think, this idea of taking care of family is, for many of us, is an issue. And I think it's really about trying to be realistic now, with how we can do that going forward, but still meet our own needs. It's very difficult, and there's lots of judgment for us in that, because then we're not seen as a good family member and so on. But sometimes we have to take that, but know that, you're making the right decisions for yourself and for your family. Yeah, Geraldina, for Shini and Edgar's is not a rite of passage. But clearly many of us thought it was. I was one of those people who felt that first thing, open a Foshini card. And, I felt so great. I was like a real adult when I had that. So it's really also about teaching our children a different way around those things. Yeah, I guess when your goals are clear, then you can manage the boundaries better, right? Because if you keep your goals in your vision, then, if I stray from that, I'm not going to achieve my goal. So I also need to be clear. And what you can do in your goals is you can also say, what are my goals for my family? Or what are my goals with regard to supporting others or giving to others? And then you can use that as the way in which you engage with that, so that again it becomes part of your vision, and it's not something that keeps distracting you and taking money away from you. Sibusiso says it's never too late. Yes, Sibusiso, I agree. It's never too late. Even if you start now, and even if you start small, it means you've started, and you're going to make a difference to yourself. If you look back in a year, you will be amazed at the difference you've already made. So it's never too late to start. Me always available. Nomsa says that's me always available to spend a lot, especially on family. Yeah. This is where you really have to come to terms of what is your own mindset here around spending, and also around boundaries with your family. So, what do you set a limit on what you will spend? Like I set a limit every month on what I will spend on entertainment, what I will spend on takeaways, what I will spend on groceries, etc., etc., and try to keep as much as possible to that. So you may deviate now and then, but the idea is to really stay focused. Commit to something, start small. Yes, agreed, Geraldine. And the spend tracker, I use the spend tracker. It's an app that you can download, and it's really useful. But there's a South African app called 22/7, which, you link your bank accounts to it, and it automatically, in a sense, then helps you create a budget, because it analyzes your spending, and it's able to give you a sense of more or less what you spend on different things. And then at the end of the month, it also gives you a report to show you where you've overspent and where you've underspent. And it gives you tips as well as to what to do in order, it analyzes your patterns, your spending patterns and so on, and then gives you tips as to how to fix some of those things. So it's a really useful app. I would suggest using it. If you're an old mutual client, for example, you also get extra points and stuff for using it. Yes or no on using financial advisors? How do you assess this? Geraldine, I think you can also say something about this, but from my perspective, I use financial advisors because I feel I don't know everything. But what I've learned over the last few years is I've also had lots of financial advisors because I have had a clear mission with financial advisors, which was, you're not just going to sell me products, you are also going to educate and empower me so that I can make my own money decisions in the future. And so I've left lots of financial advisors because I didn't get that. But what I've also done is I've sought out financial advisors through people that I know, and through having conversations with them, I can then say, okay, this person aligns with my value system or what I want, and then I will work with them. But outside of that, I've also now started, now that I'm a little bit more educated about money, about investment options and so on, I also listen to a number of podcasts on investment, on money and so on. I have been able to start doing my own thing. So for example, I've been able to start a Satrix investment around exchange traded funds. It's basically a vehicle for you to invest in shares without having to pick and choose which shares and so on. But because I listen to different podcasts, there's a Warren Ingram. I've contacted him on LinkedIn to ask him, look, I want to make my first investment. What do you recommend? And that's how I started. And then also about the tax-free, I realized I don't need to ask a financial advisor to do that. And because I'm with Ellen Gray already, I went onto their website, created an account, and that's how I opened my account. So I think if you feel that you don't know enough to be able to make the right decisions, then a financial advisor helps. I also think that financial advisors are good for retirement planning, for example. So they can give you advice on, what are the right vehicles to invest in for your retirement, but also based on where you are, what your age is, and so on, what you can afford. They will give you, the right offerings to be able to say, okay, you can do this now, and later when you have more money, you can add this on, and so on. They're also supposed to be regularly reviewing your portfolio, as they call it, with you on a, at least an annual basis. And I have one of my financial advisors. What's good about him is he sends, like, I don't know if you like me, but I'm one of those people that I have a dread disease policy and a incapacity policy and a life policy and all of that, because of my family health history. So he sends examples of claims where people have been successful and not successful, which helps to educate me about, what are the possibilities of things that I can do. If should I have a problem, should my back give in, what will happen? Will I be able to claim the money that I've been paying and so on? So they also help from that point of view. But I think it's very much about speaking to different people, seeing if they align with your value system, and then deciding whether or not you want to work with them. Geraldine, you have thoughts on that?
Hi, it's always a mission to find the unmute button and then you're on the
Yes.
wrong mic. Okay, so for me, I'd say that you need to, a financial advisor is good to use, as Sharina said, for more complex sort of financial questions, where you need to figure out what your long-term retirement situation and position would look like, when you need actuaries and so on. But you can also, like you say, educate yourself in the some of the financial programs available on radio, or even so, it's who you associate with sometimes, where you can get a lot of information from a trusted person. I've just listened to Shireen now. I've also done something with Satrix. But I'm curious about the reference that she's just made about the tax-free investment account, because I want that. So I'm going to hear and ask her more about that. And I'm going to start with it. It's a 200 in my case. I'm going to go and do that. So I also want to be able to say, okay, I've used that tool, it works. And also, of course, I can share it with other people who ask. So I've got an advisor that I've used for many years. I've particularly, she's knowledgeable. She knows her stuff. I love her.
Geraldine, you're breaking up.
You can actually develop a trust relationship with. Oh, sorry. You need to have a relationship of trust so that you can. My internet is unstable,
Yeah,
so
but
that
it's
you
okay. We
can.
can hear you now.
Okay. So trust is important when you decide on a financial advisor. But as I'm saying, the shortcut to that is to go and say a webinar like this is or just to figure out which way you want to go and what you want to go and try out hereafter.
Yes. There's a question from Nomsa about, is it wise to do debt consolidation or debt review? Geraldine, do you have a view on that before I say something?
Okay. So I think that whenever there's a consolidation or there's a debt counselor involved, someone must get paid for it. So my sense is you have to develop a relationship with money where you put money in its place, or you become the master of the money. So if you are way in debt, you're drowning, you need to find a way to say, okay, I'm going to cut back on physical drinks. I'm going to cut back on luxuries. I've got a goal and I'm going to achieve it, and I will overpower this thing called money. Because once you've done it and you've killed the Edgars and the Foschini and the Woolworths account, then you feel empowered to say, now I'm going to start dreaming bigger. I'm now not going to just kill a debt. I'm now going to plan a beautiful, a trip instead of paying off a debt. And then you become in charge of the relationship. So I'll give you a very typical example. I've just come back from Pick and Pay today, and I got so many food bargains. And that's where the saving starts. And that's where the cutting back starts, because also food is something we use every single day. So if on that level you save, you can go, you can master the rest. I'm not too much of a fan of debt consolidation. Maybe someone else has a different view.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from others as well. But my view is also that I'm not a fan of it. I also think that when you do that, you have to get into debt to pay the debt. And then also these debt counselors or whatever they call themselves from time to time, they have to get paid. And then, having to cover their expenses plus what you're already owing becomes a challenge. So my advice would be write down all your debt. See exactly what you owe to whom. And it's not just looking at that monthly amount that you owe, it's the total amount that you owe, right? And then look at that and make a decision. Like on Saturday, I was listening to another webinar with this Maya Fisher French, this woman. She's a money specialist. And one of the good things she said was, start with your small debt. So don't let it overwhelm you. If you owe a store maybe 1,500 Rand, you can make an arrangement with them to have that paid up, say, in 4 payments. Once you've paid that 4 payments, and say you pay it in 600 Rand or whatever the amount is, once you've paid that 4 payments off, you have that 600 extra every month to then put towards another debt. So for me, the suggestion is rather, have a clear sense of what debt you have and what the total amount is that you're owing, especially, not so much your bond and stuff, but, these small debts that one has, like these store cards and all these unnecessary things. It's to really start with the smaller debts, try to pay it off, then use the additional money you have from that to then pay something else off. And then obviously communicate with your creditors, even if you're in a bad position now because you've ignored them and stuff like that. This COVID-19 actually gives you an opportunity to have a good conversation with your creditors, because they are all open to having a conversation now and trying to help. So I've seen with my bank, for example, with an overdraft facility, they don't charge you anymore for that cost, because they're trying to help people out, or they're making information available of how you can access different benefits and so on. So this is an ideal opportunity to start doing that. Download the 24/7 app, try and get a sense of your budget. How much are you spending on different things? And then analyze that. You'll be amazed at how much small money you are spending all the time, which you think, it's small money. And eventually when it adds up, it can be quite a lot of money, which you can either use to pay towards your debt, or that you can use to start saving. So there are ways in which to do that. And again, if you need help, I'm happy to give you more information on that, or to perhaps help you just put that together into some kind of budget plan and so on. I also use budget templates that I use are from Excel. I just go to template and search budget, and there are different options there that you can use that can also help you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Any other views? Any other tips you may want to share? Anything that you're struggling with that you'd like information on? I really think that the main thing that I wanted to get across was really about, one, it's in your hands to change the way in which you engage with money. And you have to make decisions about, okay, it's going to stop now. And when I stop now, it will be I will do something different from here on out. Sibusiso, you have a question, please ask. Maybe unmute. I don't know if you're on mute, so maybe unmute and then please do ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My question is on this issue of spending to family. A big part of it for me, I'm just asking the other people who've had experience with this. The big part of it for me has always been, seeking validation. Sometimes it's not family that's putting pressure. It's just internal pressure. I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like if I do these things, maybe they will, I don't know, maybe they like me better, or maybe they will see I afford, or I don't know, things like this. So I'm just asking if other people have similar, experiences. My second question maybe is, because I don't have a child, right? So, I mean, all my money, it's mine and mine alone to some extent, yeah? But did you having children change your attitude towards your spending and towards money? Thank you.
Thanks, Ibusi. So I'll let others share about the family question. I mean, I have my thoughts on that, but I want to just answer your second question, which is, in the beginning, it didn't. In the beginning, I just continued in the same way that I always have. Like I wasn't the kind of parent that, for example, took out an education policy for my child when she was a baby. All those kinds of decisions you make when you're a parent, you're preparing for your child to go to varsity and all of that. I had none of that stuff. I kind of was just winging it as I go along. I made sure that I earn enough to send her to a good school and, things like that. But it was only in the last 5 years or so that I really seriously started thinking about it, to the point where I now have a policy which I could either use for education, or if she wants to go somewhere, or whatever the case may be. But I didn't do it from the beginning, and it's a mistake, because now, by the time she's old enough to leave school and go to university, or want to travel, or whatever it is she wants to do, there'll be some money, but it may not be enough money. So I, again, but because I did make a decision at some point and I have started doing something about it, at least there will be something. So for me, the lesson there has been that, I should not be judging myself too harshly because I didn't do something from the time she was born. But I did realize that I was having to change that, and I have started doing something about it. So that's where I am. I don't necessarily think that having a child, I mean, I think, yes, sometimes you think I have to have these children, I have children, I need to commit to making sure that they have a better future and so on. But I'm not convinced that that is what shapes people's mindset. I think if you have a generally bad mindset about money, you have a generally problematic way of engaging with your money, whether you have children or not, you'll have that. Anyone have any thoughts about Sibusiso's other question about family? And I think that's such a deep question, because if I think about it, this idea of the validation from family about money, it says a lot also about one's perception of yourself, your what you see as being important to you, that you perhaps you feel that external validation is important for who you are, and how you show up in the world, rather than validating yourself. So I think it's such a deep question, and we could go on the whole night talking about it. But if you are it's so much more than being about money, is what I'm trying to say from my perspective. That I really think it's about how you see yourself in the world, and how others' views or others' opinions matter to you in terms of how they see you. Any other thoughts on that?
Okay, I just want to say, I hope my
Yes.
internet is good enough. So yes, Shireen, I like what you've said, that it's, if you see it as a way of validation, then you maybe need to go and question what else is it, or why would that be important for you. So you must also just think about, so if you have someone in your family, and I'll speak from my family perspective, if someone is abusing alcohol, or someone is abusing whatever, or someone does not work, want to work, then you need to consider, what are you teaching them? How are you helping them, if at all, by perpetuating that vicious cycle of allowing that to happen? So we need to, almost in a sense, as the educated ones in the family, the one who's earning, help the ones who need to be shown in the right direction. And there's various ways to do it. I have a very harsh way of doing it. For example, my brother may not even ask me to buy him cigarettes because he knows my views and my philosophy, and how I will explain to him how he can also, overcome, and so on. But there's different ways for different families. Yeah. For me, with regard to children, as my mother sensitized me to the issues of money, being a parent has made me aware that I need to show them lessons about my relationship with money and how I conduct myself. So if I have a family set up where we starve for the whole month, payday, it's hilly and we go crazy, and for the next 30 days we starve, they will have the same relationship with their with money in their lives later on. So I've got to show them that you can live a consistent life where you don't make money the power factor, um, dictating how our lives will happen or not happen.
Yeah, thanks, Geraldine. I think that, I mean, on that note also, I'm trying now a lot to educate my daughter about money, and the value of money, but also, children and young teenagers, the name brands issues and stuff like that. So there are always compromises to make, and she understands that. So if you want something that's, a costly thing, then you will get one of that thing. Whereas if you want something else, you may get more of that. So it's also, I do think it's the value system, and trying to create a different kind of value system with our children around money, and them not necessarily making the same mistakes we did when we were even now or in the past. Any other final questions before we end? I just want to see if I didn't miss any questions. Okay, no, I don't. Okay, so I think we will end here then. I want to thank you very much for making the time to be with us. I know we're all overwhelmed, and we're also all overwhelmed with webinars and so on. But we're really hoping that this series can help you on a practical level with your financial independence, but also how the way you manage money and the way you think about money. So we will share information on future events. We're hoping to do these sessions once a month, possibly on a Saturday. This is just an exception, on a Saturday morning, and to try and then make it as practical as possible. So at points, maybe sharing, for you to do some homework, like looking at your expenses before the session and then talking through some of that. So the idea is really to work with a small group of people to kind of take you through the steps towards financial independence, rather than, throwing a lot of theory at you and then hoping you will cope with that. So we hope that you will join us in the future, and we'll share this presentation with you as well, and we'll keep you up to date about the follow-up sessions. And again, I hope that you found this useful, and thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely evening further.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.